I have good news. We crossed 30,000 followers on Instagram and 5,000 subscribers on YouTube as of last week. Now that's a lot of whimsy, folks. And since we've completed our official 1 year mark on YouTube of making long form content, I wanted to share the mistakes that I made and things I learned so far, as well as answer some of your most frequently asked questions.
Would you be my Valentine? Would you be my Valentine?
Hello. If you're new here, I'm Shray. I'm a clay and miniature artist, and I create tiny little clay characters that are called Snugglets who live in a little fantasy world called Whimsyville. Every piece I make has a name, a story, and a personality. I also make stickers, bookmarks, and similar fun little stationery goodies inspired by my clay characters. I decided to document my journey in November 2023, and since it has been a little over 1 year now, I decided to do a Q&A vlog answering some of your most frequently asked questions. And because of our tiny little milestone on YouTube as well as Instagram, I thought that this seems like the perfect time to do a question and answer kind of a session. Now I have tried my best to categorize all the questions into different sections so that you guys can skip to the part that you're interested in. However, I will be really happy if you stick through all the sections, because maybe you will find answers to questions you never knew you wanted to ask. Now, like always, I have my iced coffee with me. A little unnecessary information. A few days back, my fridge broke down, which meant no ice for me, which also meant no coffee for me because I only have iced coffee. I did try hot coffee a day or two back, but I instantly regretted it. But today, I kind of gave in. I became that person who orders ice cube on Blinkit. Yeah, not proud, but very happy because I have my coffee now. So you know the drill. Off you go, grab your favorite drinks, snuggle in, and let's have a chat. Now, a little bit of a background. In 2020, I had around 20,000 followers on Instagram. This follower base was something that I got from my webcomic designs. Back in time, I used to do small little illustrations, digital art and stuff, and post them on Instagram. That's how I got my first 20,000 followers. If you go back to my account and scroll down to the bottom, you will still find those comics out there. But in the next few years, life happened. College, graduation, job took over, and I stepped away from content creation. So no post for 3 long years, and my followers dipped down to 13,000 if I remember correctly. I was exhausted, creatively drained, and I had new problems to handle. But in November 2023, I decided to get back to content creation as well as art. That's when I started sculpting with clay. I posted 3 to 5 times a week, mostly behind the scenes, small clips of my sculpting process, a little story about Whimsyville and its characters. That consisted majority of my content. Now for me, my Snugglets aren't just clay pieces, they are tiny little characters. They have a name, a job, a life, a backstory. Whimsyville is where they live, and it's my tiny little escape from the normal world so that I can just create something from my imagination and present it to the world. Now for our first question, I never really sit down with a goal for a new piece. I often think in a different manner. I always ask questions like, what is missing in Whimsyville? Is it a bakery? Is it a chocolate store? Or is it a restaurant or a corner bookstore? Did I just give you a hint about the next upcoming structure? Yes, I did. We have some plans of including these two in Whimsyville, so be prepared. I hope you guys enjoy it. After deciding the store, for example, a bakery, I think of who the owner can be, who I'd like to see sitting inside that tiny little shop. I'm personally very fond of creating characters based on animals. I do not so far have any human figures in Whimsyville, so I stick to animals while deciding the owners. And once my structure is in mind and the animal is in mind, I then think about the season that I'm in. Is it the summer season? So maybe something strawberry like. Is it fall? So maybe a little bit of pumpkin. pumpkin and a pumpkin spiced hot chocolate. As a prop, we have our structure, we have our owner in the form of which animal it'll be. Then based on the season, we have decided the theme for our character or what it'll be holding or how it'll look. And finally, to wind it all together, a small color theme maybe. For Minnie, I wanted to go with warm color tones, something sunny and orange. For Lady Barbara, I went with the similar color tone of white and yellow orange because she was going to be launching in the autumn shop update. So that's basically how I think of all the characters. For the entire idea of Whimsyville, I was kind of inspired by two things. Number one was obviously, I've talked about this a lot, Harry Potter. The whole idea of a magical little world existing within our world felt extremely beautiful. So I got slight inspiration from there. But my other majority of inspiration comes from another wonderful and very creative and talented artist who runs an Instagram account and calls their tiny little world as Friend Forest, where many beautiful little characters and animals exist, which has a beautiful backstory. If you're someone who enjoys tiny world with different characters, small little tales, then I highly recommend checking out her work on Instagram. I kind of seriously started working on YouTube, that is started making long form content along with the shorts that I used to post in 2024 July, which is strangely exactly 1 year back. I made a point to be consistent but not to overburden myself. So instead of having a goal of making 3 or 4 videos in a month, I decided that I will stick to 1 video a month. For me, that was the sweet spot. Using some of my clips from the long form video for my short form videos or maybe as trailers on Instagram as well as YouTube shorts. So that has helped me not feel overburdened. At the same time, I also feel like there are a lot of people who watch only the shorts and there are a lot of people who watch only the long form videos. I guess that's why it has helped me gather more audience. What worked for me, I think, is the fact that I made sure in my videos I don't just go and tell people like, see, this is the new charm that I made, go and buy it. Or see, this is the new sticker that I made, go and check it out on my website. Because those kind of videos seem a little too intrusive. So I try and focus on videos that show my concept behind the art. For example, here's a new structure in Whimsyville. Who's the new character here? Along with that, since the majority of my viewers are artists, so I make sure that I have a few videos that provide some things that I learned while sculpting myself. So that has helped me gather a very, I would say, diverse, a very healthy mix of audience, because I feel I have a huge chunk of artists as well as a huge chunk of non-artists who have interests in different fields but like my content just because of the story it tells. Because I've received a lot of feedback, comments and messages where people talk about how they put it on in the background while working on their own work. It doesn't necessarily have to be a clay art or sculpting or art in general. So that's how I got to know that there's a very good mix of people watching my work. Kind of makes me feel good because that is something that I've always wanted. I want to focus and target a lot of people with different background, different thoughts. It kind of helps me a lot with my inspiration. So yeah, having a mix of content where you're trying to tell a story, present a character, show your work in progress, show your fails, show some tips that you have to share, and that will kind of help you out here. Apart from all this, one big thing that I understood was I have to be in front of the camera a little, because personally I saw a big jump in my followers as well as viewers right when I started appearing in my videos. It doesn't have to be a long vlog. It can be a short 1 or 2 seconds of you just saying hi or you just saying something else, because that kind of helps build that connection in the first few seconds so that a person who's just scrolling through your work on the other side doesn't feel like they're just watching a video. People love supporting people. It has been beneficial for me personally a lot. However, having said that, I know a lot of people are not very comfortable. Number one, I would advise try and practice it, because it'll not only help you make videos, but it'll also help you outside in the normal world. And number two, if you do not want to do that at all, you can create videos even then, obviously, by just showing your artwork. It's just that it'll have a learning curve to it, because now that there is no one on the other end to connect with, the artwork or the video editing or the way you're presenting your work or telling a story needs to be very good. So have that in mind. It is a little bit easier if you show yourself in the video, but if you're not comfortable enough, it's all right. You can just focus on your artwork as well as your editing and a little bit of lighting tricks. Now, I would dedicate my first 2,000 subscribers solely to shorts. Now, this experience might be different for different artists, but for me personally, what I've seen, I gained a lot more subscribers from shorts or because of shorts, because long form videos take a long time to make. They require a lot more efforts and patience as well as time. And once you post them, I've seen they get me like 1/4 or 1/3 of the subscribers that I usually get from shorts. So that is where I understood that if I want to increase my subscribers, I need to focus on the short form content and create more shorts. But to increase my watch hours, which is one of the biggest metrics you need to get your channel monetized, you will have to make long form videos. That is why I have a healthy mix and balance of posting one long form video in an entire month and 3 to 4 short form videos in 1 week. So this posting schedule as well as my focus on my short form content has helped me gain my first initial subscribers. Absolutely. The desire for handmade and heartfelt work will always be there among people. Irrespective of the year and time, people will always crave a connection in the form of art. And as long as you have the desire to create and someone out there has a desire for connection in the form of art, it is always the right time. I think you already know what I'm gonna say. Just start. Just go and grab hold of some clay. Make it or buy it. If you cannot buy clay, then art is just not limited to clay. Grab a pencil, paper, draw something out. Instead of just sitting and wondering, where do I start? It's always better to start without thinking about how something is going to turn out, without worrying about whether it will look good, whether the clay will be too dry, whether the sketch will look funny, whether the paint won't come out well. Don't think about all those things. That is for the later stage. For you to begin your work, all you need is to just start without worrying about all these things. I'll tell you a secret. I was notoriously known for putting things off until I had the perfect time or I knew I could do it perfectly. I ran after perfection for a long time, because of which I never really started a bunch of stuff. And I regret a lot, because at this point I feel like I would have rather started things and done them poorly than not having done them at all, because that feeling is pretty bad. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience. So to not disappoint the future you, I would just say grab any form of art or any form of medium and just start creating. As I've already mentioned, I mix different kind of content. Like some of my videos are about educational stuff, like tips and tricks about my tools or clay, the clay cracking or smoothing out the clay. And the other part is about how I'm creating whimsy or my idea or concept behind it, a little bit about the characters, some process videos where I'm sculpting them, some miniature building videos where I'm creating their tiny little houses and structures. And apart from all that, I think I always make sure that I add little bit of my life in between, like some of my coffee drinking stuff or things that I enjoy or a little bit about me, so that it feels a little more unique. At this point, after listening to me, you might be thinking that this is what I'm talking about. I don't know where to start. You're talking about building a brand, you're talking about building a different story, you're talking about sharing something about myself, and here I'm wondering what I'll work on or what my art medium is, or my clay is drying and it's not even smooth. How do I work all this out? It seems a lot, but all these things that I've done, it has happened over an entire year. I would say more than an year. In my opinion, there are different levels of making content. I would say if you're starting out, just start with the first level where you're creating any kind of artwork, whether it's using clay or a pencil and a paper or paint and canvas. I would say just pick that stuff, create an artwork, click a few pictures, few clips here and there while you're creating that artwork and post that. Once you become stable with posting something like that, you can then move on and add a little bit of story and concept creation to your work. So first is just the artwork. Second is adding a little bit story behind your artwork so that people feel connected to it and it stands out a little. And the third and the most important one is you, to give your own touch to your art account so that now people think like this: oh, that's a pig with a strawberry on its head. What's it called? It's called Snuggles now. Oh, it's a librarian in a village called Whimsyville. Who created it? Shray. That whole concept together cannot be replicated. So focus on that. See, that's the problem. If I were in your place, I would have been over the moon for this achievement. I got my first ticket order when I had around 300 or 400 followers on Instagram, and the increase in orders was always very slow for me. Someone very recently asked me how long it took me to get to 30,000 followers, and when I responded with the answer that it took me about 7 or 8 years because I had stopped creating in between for 3 years, they were shocked. They responded with a line, okay, but 7 to 8 years is a long time. And I didn't know how to respond to that. Yes, I know it is a long time, and yes, it was frustrating. And also, yes, there are a lot of accounts that reach that number in a matter of a few months or days maybe, but that is the whole point. What I want to say is you have to be patient. What worked out for me might not work out for you. What worked out for you might not work out for me. Same goes for any other artist or any other person trying to create a brand out there. The only thing that you can do is be patient with your work and not expect results too quick, because although it does happen for a lot of people, it has never happened with me. So I've always had a very realistic expectation from myself. I wake up super early and I utilize the morning time a lot. If I'm shooting a video or if I'm sculpting one clay character, then I make sure that I shoot a bit of landscape footage and I also get some vertical footage, so that by sculpting one clay character, I can get 2 or 3 reels or shots from them, as well as a small part from my long form video. I got tired of yapping. You're reminded to drink some water. I've switched to glass bottles from plastic bottles because, I don't know, I'd read some nasty stuff online, so being a internet doctor for myself. Let's also have some coffee because we got the ice after a long time, as you guys know. I think for this section, I really needed that coffee. This is one of the most asked questions, and this is also the question that I avoid the most because I think it always makes me a little disappointed and angry because I have a very different thought process behind pricing my product than a lot of artists and people out there. So I avoid talking about it a lot, but here, I'll just give you 2 things. I'll give you one formula and I'll give you one sentence. And before I say that, this is completely my opinion and this is completely how I like to work around pricing. You do not have to stick to it. You can do whatever you want. I'll start off with the formula first. Price is equal to the material cost plus the time multiplied by your hourly rate, and then you multiply the whole thing with a markup. There are 3 to 4 terms here. I'll explain each one of them. Material cost is just a basic approximate cost of how much you've spent on the clay or the color and stuff. Time and hourly rate. The entire time you took to sculpt the product, glaze it and pack it, okay? Have a rough estimate of that time and multiply it with an hourly rate. Now, hourly rate is something that you will have to decide for yourself depending on how much effort you're putting into what kind of a clay charm. I keep on changing my hourly rate based on the character that I'm making. For all my ready to sell products, I have the hourly rate as low because I've already created them and it doesn't involve a lot of changes. But for my custom orders, is I have a higher hourly rate because that requires more of my efforts. Also keep in mind your packaging supply cost. You will have to calculate the per piece rate for each of your packaging, and on top of that, if you're using a platform for selling that product, then you'll also have to take into consideration that because you're paying every month for a platform, right? So a small portion of that should also be included here. The final one is markup. Now you can adjust the markup based on your skills, your product's uniqueness, and how much profit you want to make in order to not feel burnt out or overburdened. For handmade products, a markup of 1.2 to 2.2 is very common, so you can choose accordingly. To make it less confusing, I'll just add a small little example here. If for example your material cost came down to 50 rupees and you took a total of 2 hours to sculpt and glaze the product, and your hourly rate is, let's say, 200 followed by a markup of 1.5, then your price will be this. I'll come to the sentence that I wanted to share with you. Price the product for yourself, not for someone else. You have to adjust it according to your satisfaction, your time, your material cost. So it'll always be different for different artists. No. I do, but that's very rare. For example, the most recent discount, and I guess the first discount, proper discount or sale I had on my website was when we reached 30,000 followers on Instagram. To celebrate that, I had a flat 50% off across all my products on my website. Apart from that, I do have a tiny discount of 5% if you subscribe to my emails on my website, and a 10% off for people who leave a review on my website after receiving their products. Apart from that, I don't usually have any other major discounts or sales. Prices actually vary a lot based on the performance in my previous shop drop. For the most recent shop update, I guess it was around 35 or somewhere between 35 and 40. I don't usually make a bulk of stock. I prefer making maybe a max of 6 or 7 pieces for each character. When they sell out, I do a restock after a month or 15 days, and that's how I handle the stock. Because if I create a bunch of these in the first go and they don't sell out, I feel a little demotivated, so I focus on creating less and getting them all sold out rather than creating a lot of these characters with a lot of left out stock. Okay, the answer for this one is very similar to the first question, but I'd still like to mention it because this is also a very common question where you guys are a little scared of pricing your products high in the very beginning of your business. I will say the same thing again. I can't give you a single number. I gave you a formula, and all I can tell you is you have to price it in a way that you yourself as an artist feel satisfied by it. If you don't feel satisfied, then there will be a point where you'll feel that it's not worth it. So for me, pricing it at 200 or 300 is not going to be ideal. But again, that is my opinion. However, if you're starting out and you still want to turn this into a business and it's not just a hobby or for a little bit of pocket money, then I would say go for it. Price it lower, price it at a reasonable price that you think people will buy it at, and continue with that for some time. And if you feel that it's okay for you and you don't feel burned out or overburdened, then just keep it at that price. That's all right. It's your art, it's your call. No one has a say in it. As long as there is a crowd who's willing to buy it at 300, you will always have your customers. But my only hope is you're doing it because you're satisfied with it. If you're doing it because some random friend or some customer told you to do it, then I think you need to rethink it, because one person's budget, one person's affordability doesn't represent everyone else's budget. So I get a lot of comments where people straight up say stuff like, your prices are ridiculously expensive. If you want to commercialize your work, then you have to price them lower. And I always fail to understand the point, because definitely if my products were priced at maybe 300 or 400, I would have made hundreds of sales, but I don't need hundreds of sales. I want a meaningful 30 or 20 sales. I will always be happy and content with that much, because I know those handful of people saw some value in the work and they are ready to pay that much for it. people who are not ready to pay that much for it. That's all right. You don't see value in it, so you find it expensive and you don't buy it. It's as simple as that. There's nothing wrong in it. What's wrong is you going and telling the artist that no one else is going to buy it and that they should lower the price. That is not kind. Leave the artists be. If they find their audience, they will sell to them. If they don't, they will adjust their pricing or switch to another line. It's as simple as that. Website is a game changer for visibility and professionalism, and video editing is what will make you stand out. So it's very important. Obviously, I'm using a what camera just stand on me? In my opinion, the most important thing is lighting. The only tip I think is worth it is sunlight. I know it's something that not everyone will have access to inside their houses, but try and find angles where you have good natural lighting. Yes, people use a lot of artificial lighting, but trust me, editing videos with artificial lighting is very difficult and will take up a lot of your time. So why not save some editing time but just shooting something in proper lighting, that is natural lighting. Find tiny little corners, maybe your balcony, your terrace, or if you have a garden, a small window. It doesn't have to be near your workspace. Maybe add some well-lit clips of you talking to the camera in that small tiny well-lit area and then come back to your workplace. Adjusting your editing style based on the environment you shoot in is something that you'll have to learn. For example, if you live in an area where there's a lot of background noise, what you can do is use softwares like Audacity for reducing the noise from the background, or if you do not want to get into that technicality, then maybe for that day shoot a voiceover video where you record the audio in a very secluded and separate place. Something that worked for me as well as a lot of artists I've heard is opening your cupboard where you store all your clothes and just take the phone or mic closer to your face and record your audio there. I think because of all the clothes in the cupboard, the audio comes out much better. Yeah, that kind of works. You can try that. If there is no chance for you to edit a voiceover, then maybe just add a little bit of background music. That has always helped me. Currently, I'm using my camera, that is Sony ZV-E10 for all my recordings. The lens that I'm using is the kit lens that I got with my camera. But before this, I used to use my handy little phone for all the recording. I edit my videos using a software called DaVinci Resolve. It's a free software. It also has a paid version, but I don't use the paid version. I only use the free version. I use it on my PC, by the way. For editing my reels and stuff, I used to use VN as well as InShot sometimes, but lately I've completely switched to DaVinci Resolve even for my short form content. The warm effect that you see in my videos, I guess it's mostly because of the little bit of color grading and temperature increase that I do. So I record my videos in S-Log2 while filming them. After shooting in S-Log, my videos kind of look like this. Yeah, very different from my final videos, right? So once I import a clip looking like this to DaVinci Resolve, I add a basic Sony LUT that's available for free on their website and it looks like this. Much better. We're still not done because I make few more changes to my video. Playing around with the saturation a little, increase the warmth of my lights as well as shadows, but we're still not done. This little cushion here, how about I increase its saturation a little bit? That's better. Now, this might not be the most ideal form of editing for everyone, but I've been playing around with it a lot and I'm slowly trying to understand that this is how I like my videos to be. But when you edit your videos, I would advise not just going ahead and copying all the editing settings that I said, because that might not look good on your video, because your environment or the environment you shot your video in must be completely different from my environment. The lighting, the shadows, a lot of things will be different. So if you tweak the things exactly like I am tweaking them, then the video might not look the same as my videos, because obviously they were shot in a different environment. So what I would advise is take one clip and just play around with every single setting there is. Even if it looks weird, just play around and you'll get a hang of it on your own. If you guys need help understanding these things, I will link a few videos that I followed myself to understand the basics of editing, and then you can just go ahead and experiment on your own. I get a lot of question about the font, the curved text and the weird layout of my text, but the truth is I kind of hand draw most of my titles. So any text, like the big title text that you see in my vlog, as well as the small little illustrations, they are all hand drawn by me. I use my iPad pencil as well as Procreate to make those. Now before this, I used to use different fonts like kindergarten for my subtitles and stuff, but I'm so excited that I finally created my own font. I used calligraphy. I'll just search up and write the correct name here, a website, to create my own font. I first drew out every single letter, and then with the help of this website, I converted it into a font. And now I'm using my own font for all my subtitles. Maybe I'll make a separate video about how you can create your own font. It's no more a secret. I use Shopify for creating my website. I wanted my own personalized web address like www.shrayarchie.com, but this is something that I can't just use. I have to buy this. This is a domain name and you have to buy it. I bought my domain name from Namecheap first, and for my second year, I guess I switched to NameSilo. Once I had my domain name, I took monthly subscription on Shopify. I use their most basic plan because that sort of satisfies all my requirements. So I pay around 2,000 every single month for my Shopify subscription. Now once I had my domain name and I had a Shopify account, I went ahead and chose one of their most basic shop themes. They have a list of a bunch of themes that you can choose from based on what kind of a shop you want it to look like. Once I selected my theme, I went ahead and changed the font, added my own little illustrations to make it more whimsy-like, after which I also listed down all my products there. I think the final step was working out the payment gateway thing, because you have to add a payment method so that people can go to your website and place an order without any worry and pay for it online. So I went with Razorpay. Once you select one of these, like when I selected Razorpay, I had to separately reach out to them, and on my Razorpay account, I had to submit a few documents. So if you're a registered business, if you're an individual running a small business, you will have to give some documents like the PAN for your company or your own PAN card. If you're doing it as an individual, once you provide those documentations, they do some verifications. For me, it took 2 days, and they'll come with either an approval or rejection. It's most probably going to be approved if you've not made any mistakes or missed out any details. Once I had an approval from Razorpay, I just launched my website after that. This is a very brief and short overview of what all I did over a period of a few months, because it took a lot of research and understanding, trials and errors to finish this entire thing. Take your own time, even if it takes a few months, figure it out. If you're confused, a simple YouTube search of how to open a website using Shopify can help you out a lot. I'll list a few of them in the description, so in case you guys want to check it out, you can. One thing I would like to say is, although I listed down a lot of stuff, I didn't do every single one of them at once. I didn't just launch a website, start recording and editing my videos, adding animation, creating hundreds of clay charms and a bunch of reels and shorts in one go. It took me the entire period of 1.5 years to complete every single one of them one by one. So focus on one thing. If it's website building and creating shop updates, then go for that first. If it's only sculpting and creating content, go for that first, and then add on the remaining stuff. Don't go for everything all at once. It'll drive you crazy, trust me. You don't want to be a crazy artist. So focus on one thing, pick one thing, work on that. Once that is a little stable, you can start working on the other stuff. 5,000 whimsy folks on YouTube and 30,000 whimsy folks on Instagram. That's a lot of people. So thank you from the core of my heart. With that, I'll see you again in the next one. Until then, stay cozy. Bye for now. Hello. If you're new here, okay, sorry. I have a big ass pimple here. I have many. I went ahead and changed the font, added my own snuggling, and let's have a chat. Chat.
So what you finally seem impossible.